Hello everyone and welcome back to Set 6, and today what we're going to be doing is, well, I mean, if you've seen the thumbnail, you know what I'm going to be doing. Today I am completely spoiling Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission DLC. So, I don't have a PS5, so I'm not going to get to play it, so I had to spoil it for myself in order to, continue making content on the game. And that involved me watching about 4 or 5 hours of gameplay and, just kind of rewinding it, seeing different bits over and over again, that sort of thing, just to try and soak in as much as possible. Oh, by the way, I may have already mentioned this, but this video is just going to be full of spoilers. I'm just going to talk for like the next 30 seconds or so, just so that people who've accidentally stumbled onto this spoiler video can, go away, save themselves. But if you're in that boat with me, what I've decided to do is I'm just going to do a quick video which goes over the main story beats of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission. It's not going to have all of the details in there. There are going to be little hidden things that people are going to pick up on as they play through it and play through it over and over again. This is literally going to be the main story bits and a few little observations that I picked up, as I was watching the playthroughs that I watched. If you are interested in watching a full playthrough, I know SchrodingersBabySeal's got one uploaded, so, head over to his Twitch and keep an eye out on his YouTube channel because it will definitely be dropping on there soon. And that's if you want to watch the full experience and, see a bit of a master of the gameplay. He knows what he's doing. So, yeah, I definitely recommend that. But I feel like I've wasted enough time now, so last warning, this video is full of spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission. It spoils everything. So, run away. Save yourself. But don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content, and let's get on with it. So the DLC opens with Yuffie on the edge of Midgar where she's meant to be meeting up with a member of Avalanche. The early stages of the DLC just involve Yuffie getting through the outer sections of the slums and heading to the meet-up point with Avalanche, which has been marked out for Yuffie with strategically placed Moogle posters, similar to the stamp graffiti in Remake, where you had to follow, which way the stamp graffiti's nose was pointing, same sort of thing. Now, as she goes through this journey, one thing that does happen is Yuffie sees a couple of Sephiroth clones. She sees number 11 and number 20. Now, 11 we have seen before in the original Final Fantasy VII. It's the Sephiroth clone that's in Tifa's house in Nibelheim. But 20 we've never seen before, so just a little tidbit for you there. Now, eventually, Yuffie reaches the Sector 7 slums, and after seeing a news report with Scarlet, is met by her Avalanche contact, GJ. Now, this places Intermission just after the Reactor 5 bombing, which was pretty much what everybody expected anyway. This is where we thought it was going to be. GJ leads Yuffie to meet up with the rest of the Avalanche gang for this story, and she talks about the mission to infiltrate Shinra HQ and steal the ultimate materia. GJ heads off to collect the IDs that Yuffie and Sonon are going to need for the infiltration mission, and you get a bit of an opportunity at this point to, chat to a few of the other members like Billy Bob and Polk and Nio, and play a bit of Fort Condor, the usual sort of stuff. But eventually we meet up with Sonon. I'm not going to go in too much to all the little side things that you can run off and do. Like I say, I'm literally just covering the main story beats here. Now, once we've met Sonon, we get a few minutes of banter and exposition regarding Yuffie and Sonon, and the group then head out to collect some merchandise. As the party are on the way to collect this merchandise, we get the scene from the trailers with Barrett and Tifa returning without Cloud from the Sector 5 bombing run. And at the end of this scene, Tifa runs off to look into Don Corneo. Yuffie and co carry on with their mission, and along the way they run into Don Corneo's men, and they end up in a fight against them after they try to forcibly sign Neo up to the Don's bridal selection. Now, once you've defeated the Don's men, we find out that Tifa has signed up to the same bridal selection, and, the Don's guys choose to move on at this point. After this, Yuffie and the gang collect the merchandise that they need, which is IDs to get them on the train, same as we saw in the original game and in Remake. And once they're leaving this place, they see another Sephiroth clone, which is number 49, which, again, we've not seen before. They then receive a message from GJ by Pidgin, which tells them to come to the pillar ASAP, so they kind of drop everything and head that way. When they get there, they see that GJ has been chased off by 2 Shinra soldiers, with Yuffie and Sonon giving chase while Neo heads back to the hideout so that she can warn everyone what's gone on. After a long chase through the slums and the pillar maintenance sections, GJ is finally caught by the Shinra troops who start to interrogate him. Yuffie and Sonon get there just in the nick of time, and Yuffie has possibly one of the funniest moments in the entire DLC. She's got a brilliant introduction here, which is very much in the style of Gilgamesh. I'm just going to let this play for a second because it's not very long, so just enjoy this.
beguiling ninja. As the world's greatest materia hunter. But who am I truly? Well, excited onlookers wonder no more. For me seems a rare wound. A single white rose of Wutai. The one and only Yuffie!
Never mind, it's just some kid.
Now straight after this we get to the fight with the Gigantipede that we saw from the trailers, and once you defeat the Gigantipede, GJ hands over the ID cards, which are this time the ones that they're going to need to access the Shinra building. Now Yuffie and Sonon have got everything that they need, and as they're leaving, GJ mentions that Shinra are planning to destroy Sector 7, which no one seems to take seriously at this moment in time. Gonna regret that. Everyone heads back to the Sector 7 slums and they find that the hideout, the Avalanche hideout, has been raided by Shinra, which leaves you with pretty much nothing to do except hoover up whatever side quests that you've got left, any kind of, Fort Condor gameplay or anything like that, and then catch the train to the upper plate and Shinra headquarters. Now once we're on the train, we see the return of Yuffie's legendary motion sickness, which I'm glad made it, and we also get some details about Sonon's sister Melfe. We learn that she trained under Godo alongside Sonon. However, towards the end of the war, a Shinra mech went haywire, and she was killed trying to protect people in the area, basically. After the train journey, they're pretty much straight at the front door of the Shinra building, and as they're going in, they're harassed by the news reporter that we see throughout Remake. Eventually, they do get past him, and the Shinra troops accost the reporter and try to get rid of him. Once they've got away from him, Yuffie and Sonon get into an elevator and try to get where they need to go. But before they can select which floor they're heading to, Scarlet and a few guards get into the elevator with them. Scarlet immediately recognises Sonon and Yuffie as Wutaian, and she goes into a bit of a verbal tirade berating Wutai as a nation in general. Yuffie manages somehow to resist the urge to punch her in the face, and Sonon misses his chance for vengeance as well, which is something that both of them regret a few moments later. It's at this point in the DLC that Scarlet definitely takes the opportunity to flex her Hojo muscles. She's 100%, getting combat data, testing, trying to push as far as she can, all while trying to kill Yuffie and Sonon. Now, once the pair get through the gauntlet, the big fight from the trailer that we see against Scarlet and her mech, the Crimson Mare, takes place. Seems like a pretty fun fight. She goes down eventually, and once she's defeated, she kind of stands there talking about the failings of the mech rather than worrying about what's going on behind her. She just completely ignores them, showing that she's just not concerned in the slightest. She then activates like a secret emergency button that she's got and sets things in motion for the final part of this DLC. The button that she's pressed awakens Nero from his sleep in Deep Ground. We also learn at this point that Shinra are trying to digitally replicate Vice. We see a scene where Chadley's working on this digital version of him, which really just tries to drive home how absolutely batshit crazy Vice is. And this sets up the fight that you're getting integrated with Cloud and the party squaring off against Vice in the combat simulator. Back in the DLC, Nero starts proving just how crazy he is, as he talks about beginning his next hunt and how long it's been, and how the Shinra guys are never going to be able to replicate Vice. We cut back to Scarlet and Yuffie, and we get the big reveal that the materia that Yuffie and Sonon have come for is nowhere near complete. But it's something that is being worked on, so the intel was correct to a certain extent, but it was, they jumped the gun. And this is exactly what I predicted, so I'm quite happy with that one. Now, the reason the materia isn't finished is because it's taken a backseat due to plans surrounding Sector 7 and Platefall. Now, Sonon's kind of run off to check on something. You hear an explosion, Sonon runs off to check on what's going on, and this is where you get this conversation between Yuffie and Scarlet. After the conversation, Yuffie runs off to kind of see what's going on with Sonon, and this is where we start getting into the fights against the Deep Ground soldiers, and instantly recognisable as Deep Ground soldiers. And it's at this point that Yuffie tells Sonon that, Sector 7's in trouble. So it's the scene that we see from the trailers. Not long after this, Yuffie and Sonon find themselves locked away in a room. They kind of get caught off guard and knocked into this room and trapped in there. And at this point, Nero arrives, with Scarlet telling him that she wants Yuffie and Sonon to suffer. Nero proceeds to kill and absorb all of the Deep Ground soldiers that had been fighting previously, and waits for Yuffie and Sonon. Now, the room Yuffie and Sonon have ended up in is like a prototype for the combat simulator, and the pair are forced to run another gauntlet of fights, similar to the Met Gauntlet, but this time all in the combat simulator. The fight starts with unknown entities and mobs like the Nene that we've seen in Remake and in the original game, And it finishes off with a new creature, but not a new creature, which is the Diabolic Creation. And that is 100% a shout out to Heletic Hojo from the original game, the form that Hojo takes after you beat his main form. Well, I think you beat his first form, and then he takes the Heletic Hojo form, and then there's another form after that. It's that middle form that this is kind of nodding towards. So, yeah, love that. Now, once they finish the fight, they leave the room that they were in, they manage to get out of there, and walk straight into the room where Nero is, where he's just finishing off absorbing all of the troops from earlier. We also see that the Shinra scientists are watching on with the intention of collecting as much data as possible as part of like a Soviet field test. It looks like an insane fight. I can't wait to get my hands on a PS5 and get involved with it, but let's stick with the story. So after the first phase of the fight, Nero's arm restraints disappear. He proceeds to absorb all of the Shinra scientists and kind of breaks out of that room that he's in, which, yeah, those scientists, they never have a good time. Like, Shinra scientist is possibly the worst job, I think. I would not take that job. Just no. As the fight goes on, Nero continues to behave erratically, getting crazier and crazier, proving beyond all doubt that he is also batshit crazy. But his strength continues to grow and grow and grow as well. Now, eventually, Yuffie and Sonon do get the victory against Nero, but as the pair are going to leave, Nero kind of launches a sneak attack at Yuffie. Sonon notices what's going on, has a bit of a PTSD moment where he sees his sister's death and decides to throw himself in front of Yuffie and takes the L that everybody knew that he was going to take. Like, seriously, who did not predict this? Everybody predicted this. It was an easy win. I predicted it. It's my easy win. Sonon pushes Yuffie to safety out of the room as Nero continues to just shred him to pieces, and then seems to absorb him, finishing Sonon off pretty much completely. We then get a cut to the outside of the Shinra building with Yuffie sprinting away in tears. I'm not too sure how anyone outside of the Shinra building doesn't just kind of go, what's that young Wutai looking girl with a pinwheel weapon running away from the building crying for? What's going on? Why does nobody ask a question? Like, even when they're going in, they just kind of saunter in, and leaving, they just saunter out. It's the same with Cloud and everyone in the first, in Remake, they just kind of wander in and wander out. It's just, these Shinra troops, they're getting paid too much, obviously, because they're useless. But then as Yuffie sprints away, she kind of stops in her tracks as she sees Sector 7 just crumble away in front of her, dropping onto the slums below, confirming that it definitely wasn't Vincent that we saw in Yuffie's eye, or Kate Sith, or anybody else. It was just Sector 7. And then that is the end of the DLC. We see a final scene with Yuffie riding a chocobo outside of Midgar. She says that she feels like she can't make the journey alone, definitely hinting that she's going to hook up with the party quite early on in part 2, I'd say. We're not going to have to wait long for Yuffie to be kind of merged into the team, purely because of all the materia and things like that she's got on her person as well. We need to merge them into the main party, just so that they've got access to it as well. So, yeah, I don't think we'll be waiting very long. Could be wrong on that one, but yeah. But then, we get a little bit more. We get an extra scene to the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. The scene starts, we see Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, Barrett and Red 13, and they're just walking down the road away from Midgar towards Calm, and just having a general bit of banter along the way. We see the gang successfully hitchhike the way to Calm, and just as they kind of arrive really close to Calm, we see a storm kind of rolling in and things like that. There's definitely some symbolism going on there. I've not tried to examine it too much, but just when you look at those scenes, they'll be on screen now, but when you look at those scenes, there's definitely some symbolism going on. And it does kind of indicate two things to me, and I was going to try to avoid speculation and theory and all that sort of business as much as possible. But yeah, here we go. It's nothing big that I'm predicting, it's just two things that are quite obvious from this now. The first thing is that we're starting in Calm rather than at the edge of Midgar. We are 100% going to start the next game. I would be shocked if we don't start the next game in the Calm flashback. So the game will start in that truck, heading towards Nibelheim, with Cloud and Sephiroth and two soldier grunts. That's what we're going to get. That's my prediction, at least. That's where it's going to start. It might start with the team arriving in Calm and just kind of walking in and then going into the inn. But either way, it's definitely starting at Calm. And then the other thing that this kind of makes me think is this a bit of a metaphor for how close they are to being done with Remake Part 2? The optimist in me wants to say yes. I mean, the sensible human in me is saying, nah, be quiet, stop it, why are you doing this? But, the unknown journey, we were on a road from Midgar to Calm, we're pretty much at the destination now. This is what I mean, this symbolism in that scene. There's definitely something about that scene. But that isn't the only scene that we get. After this, the scene cuts to outside Aerith's church with Zack. Zack's stood outside the church going over his first line that he's going to say to Aerith after, 5 years of not seeing her. He doesn't come up with anything suitable, so he just decides to fling the doors open anyway. And what he finds is a large number of people inside the church, all in varying states of disarray. The screen goes black, and Zack calls out Aerith's name. And that's it. This bit of the ending scene, I don't know how to interpret it fully. So the first thing that I take from it is all of these people that were saying Zack doesn't die at that scene in Remake. He walks a few more steps and gets shot at the edge of the cliff. That's done. That's out the window now. Zack survives. 100%. There is no one can do any mental gymnastics anymore to try and say, oh, no, he's definitely dead. No, he's alive. The big question still, though, is where and when. I'm not going to go too deep into this now. I'm just going to say that it is still open where and when. It does look like that is after Platefall. So it does look like Zack is kind of stumbling into the aftermath of Platefall. And what that means is that Avalanche's mission is still going to head, well, the Splinter group, the Barrett and Tifa group, their mission is still going to head. They've still done the bombing runs, because without the bombing runs, Platefall doesn't happen. That's what that kind of indicates to me. Unless. And that is a very big unless. Now, if we look at the timeline of Final Fantasy VII, which is a bit messy at the best of times, we look at this timeline of Final Fantasy VII and we see that events, quite a lot of events occur around the time that Cloud and Zack arrive back at Midgar. One of those events is pretty much, well, it is exclusively in Before Crisis, and it's the events surrounding Zirconiad. So the way that we look at this is in late September of the year 2007 or 0007. In late September of that year, that is when Cloud and Zack arrive back at Midgar and Zack normally is killed. So that timeline should match. That should stay the same. Now, we see within within a week of this, we see that Zirconiad's been summoned. And we see that there's a lot of things going on around Midgar. And one of the bigger things that happens during this story is pretty much the destruction of at least a part of Sector 6. Now, does this match up with Zack returning to Midgar? And it kinda does. If Zack returns at the same point that Cloud returns to Midgar, with nothing changing, it could potentially match up with the events of Before Crisis, and this could be why we're seeing people in the church, not Platefall. So it is still completely up in the air what the deal is with Zack. I'm going to do a bigger video talking about this. This is just a quick little mention at the end of this video. I might even cut it. If you're hearing this, I didn't. But, I might. I don't know. But that's going to be the end of this one. So that is the full story of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission and the additional cutscene at the end of Remake. So, yeah. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. For me, I don't know, I was expecting a bit more from the story, to be honest with you. I was expecting more shocks and more twists from Intermission. I think, yeah, I don't think there was anything mind-blowing in it. It looks fun, and maybe the fact that I didn't play it is the reason why it doesn't feel as mind-blowing as it could do. You never know. But yeah, that's the events of what goes down in Intermission, and also in the cutscene at the end of the game. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content. But more importantly than anything, have a great day.